You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome into the Toronto Sports Rush right here on the Bet Rivers Network. EJ Hradek here, and it is Mondays, so that means it's a little time for our friend Pierre McGuire. Mondays with McGuire. And Pierre, it has been kind of a quiet summer thus far. I mean, it was busy early July, but it really kind of tailed off. But we're getting ready, I think, to ramp up again here now. We're getting towards the latter part of August into early September. I mean, what do you think teams are thinking right now, in particular the Leafs, who, it seems like they still have a move or two left here before the regular season starts?
EJ, great to visit with you again, by the way. But I think the Leafs are one of the teams that will be proactive as we go forward. I think they're looking to clear some cap space out. Remember, it was a couple years ago where they made a side deal, quote unquote, with Max Pacioretty to bring him into the organization. I still think the Leafs have one more move left in them. It'll be interesting to see what they do with some of their depth forwards to create some more cap space and potentially bring in Jack Roslovic. I also think the Montreal Canadiens are another team. Watch what happens if they move Carey Price's contract out of Montreal. And they have, like a lot of teams, they have this ever-present need, EJ, of a second-line center.
Yeah.
And if Montreal ever was able to do that, and I don't know who they would target, I don't like to play that game, but if they ever were able to do that, Montreal in that Atlantic division would cause a lot of problems. And I think they could push almost to get to the top spot where Toronto was last year.
Yeah, it's interesting in the Atlantic because, we looked at those teams. For years, it had been 4 up and 4 down, right? And now it's starting to change because we were waiting on Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal, Detroit. And Montreal has done, that group there has done a really good job of pushing forward because of those 4 teams, they seem to be like the furthest one away. And yet, they were last year in the postseason and gave Washington a little scare in that first round series. So you're right. I mean, the Montreal Canadiens, I mean, they could be more of a factor, particularly if they could add another piece.
And what's interesting? People aren't talking enough about the acquisition of Noah Dobson. And this is nothing against David Savard, who had a magnificent NHL career. He's retired now. That opened up a spot on the right side for David Savard to come in, for Noah Dobson to replace David Savard. And you look at it, Noah Dobson going in there, let's just say for the sake of argument, he's playing in the 4-hole rather than the 2-hole, which he was a lot of times on Long Island. That's a big difference. He's not going to be on the top power play. That's Lane Hudson's job. This Montreal Canadiens defense is a lot better than what a lot of people are saying, and their depth forwards are very good. And if they ever get, to your point, that second center, EJ, they're going to cause problems. And one of the teams they're going to cause problems for is going to be Toronto.
Yeah, no question about it. And you got Ottawa that's moving up the ranks as well with young players. So it's an interesting time in the Atlantic Division as we're seeing change. Boston is kind of, moving into a different phase in their franchise. Montreal, Ottawa moving up. Detroit and Buffalo still trying to figure it out. So I expect another interesting year. Let's get back to the Leafs, though. I was looking at through their roster and, they're set. I mean, they're locked in on defense in terms of the contracts for a while now. Riley, McCabe, Tanev all signed through 2030. OEL through 27-28. 2 more years for Benoit, 2 more years for Carlo. I mean, I like the defense, but I wonder, winning a Stanley Cup, is this group in your mind good enough, or at some point do they have to try to make at least one upgrade there?
I'd love to see them try to make one upgrade in terms of a puck-moving defenseman. And one of the things they did this summer, they brought in Henry Thrun. I think Henry Thrun is a very useful player. I watched him play for a long time at the prep school level in Massachusetts at Harvard University. His father actually went to St. Lawrence University when I was coaching there. So I'm pretty familiar with Henry. And Henry's a really good puck mover, but he's a depth puck mover. He's not a top 4 puck mover. I think if they ever could add one of those and take some pressure off of, let's say, Morgan Riley on the power play, I think that would help them. I would be trying to gauge and focus in on a power play defenseman. Think about it last year. They went 5 forwards on their first power play in Toronto, and Mitchell Marner's not there anymore. He was the guy running the power play. So I think, EJ, that would be something that I'd be looking for if I were Brad True living in the Toronto Maple Leafs, a puck-moving, elite, offensive-type defenseman.
Another guy I want to ask you about, or a position is the goaltending, because, I got to talk to Anthony Stolarz last week, and he's feeling good. So that's the good news after being banged up, in the playoffs and missing, basically the entire round against the eventual champion Florida Panthers. But he's got 1 year left on his deal. Joe Wall's got 3 years left. They're both represented by Alain Wall, who's, the same. So they have the same representation. Stolarz has had 2 really good years in a row in terms of his save percentage. He hasn't played that 50, 55 games that, you'd like for a real number one. But on 2 good teams, he had a 925 and 926 save percentage. What do you think the future holds for Stolarz? Will it depend on how things unfold this year? Because I'm thinking for Anthony at 31, he's probably someone that's more interested in term maybe than the bigger dollars. Where do you see his season as we look forward to the new year?
I thought he was the biggest steal in free agency last summer.
Yeah.
I really thought Toronto did a magnificent job being able to get him, especially at the price point they got him at, EJ, number one. Number two, there are not a lot of guys from Edison, New Jersey, almost in your backyard that are playing in the National Hockey League. So congratulations to Anthony on that. And the first time I ever saw Anthony play at a high level, he was playing in Nebraska, Omaha, before he went to play for the London Knights. So I know his body of work pretty well. I think Toronto's a wait-and-see situation for him.
Yeah.
If he has a big year this year, I do think he'll be able to get 3 or 4 years of term. This reminds me a lot of Ryan Donato. Different position, different organization, different conference. Donato last year was a wait-and-see in Chicago. He puts up over 30 goals. He gets a 4-year deal at $4 million a year, $16 million bonanza for Ryan Donato. He's made it. He's done a great job with his career. I think Stolarz is in the same situation as a goalie. Get your team to the Eastern Conference Final if you're Anthony Stolarz, and I think you get the long-term extension at a price point that's better than $2.5 million a year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you mentioned it, 2.5 on the 2-year deal that he signed last year. A really good deal for the Leafs, but the guy continues to play well.
Yep.
That will certainly be an interesting conversation for them, because Wall is signed, and if they don't want to go any further on a deal, they might just go forward with Joe Wall, but we'll wait and see. And, Anthony, the one bugaboo is he's just had a little bit of trouble staying healthy. Mm-hmm. Last year had the injury in December, missed some time, and then got hurt in the playoffs. But he has played very, very well. And I always root for my Jersey guys, Pierre. I mean, that's just, I gotta look out for those guys. Speaking of, of the American kids, They just won the Hlinka Gretzky tournament overseas, and Team USA really hasn't won that tournament, I think, since 2003. It's kind of their second tier prospects. Canada usually sends its high end guys, and they did again this year. They ended up losing a shootout. I mean, that's a coin toss. Although the U.S. kids really made some nice shots in there to win that shootout, and they ended up beating Sweden to win the gold medal. But From a scouting standpoint, it kind of kicks off the year, that tournament, for the draft eligibles for next year's draft. What did you make of that tournament? And I know you were impressed with Kevin Porter, who was the head coach of Team USA.
I thought the Canadian coaching was good as well. But, the biggest thing to me is Kevin was a tremendous player for Red Berenson at the University of Michigan. He won the Hobie Baker Award, which is the Heisman Trophy of college hockey. And Kevin could never really get any traction at the NHL level as a player. But man, oh man, people, again, I get it. People that are NHL fans don't want to spend time watching the American Hockey League. Kevin Porter was a heck of a player at the American Hockey League. He really was. He was a tremendous. And I watched him coach, and I talked to Ben Sire, who was his assistant, and Ben couldn't say enough good things about Kevin and the way he handled himself with Team USA. This is a tournament not just for development of players. It's a tournament that's developmental potentially for coaches as well.
Yeah.
And I think if there's one shining star that comes out of it for the Americans, besides some of the players, it's going to be Kevin Porter. And I think that's a tremendous thing for Kevin and for USA Hockey.
Yeah, their power play was off the charts in the tournament. And that, special teams in a short tournament, obviously you have to have the players and they have to perform. But I think a lot of that is the coaching and the preparation to be ready to take on those moments. And they seem to do a really good job.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a really good way to look at it, EJ. I agree with you 100%. The other part of it is when I look at the way hockey's growing right now, I'm blown away by the tempo of the games. And I'm blown away by the skill level of the games. But the biggest thing is we've never seen young players shoot the puck with as much velocity, as much accuracy, and as much quickness as what we're seeing right now, AJ. And this is just all this training these kids are doing. And I work with a lot of kids over the course of a year, and I'm just blown away by how well they shoot the puck. That's changing the game. It really is.
Yeah, and it's again interesting to watch because I was impressed with a lot of the kids on the U.S. team. Obviously, impressed with a lot of the Canadian kids. I mean, they had some really good players on, that were out there that are going to be guys that play in the NHL for a long time. But it just speaks to what you're talking about, the depth of the players. Certainly more so in the U.S. than it's ever been before. I mean, I can go back, Pierre, remember when, Team USA would play Team Canada at events like this, and the American kids would be just intimidated. I mean, it was very clear to see, physically intimidated. And now, maybe just because these kids all know each other, they play against each other all the time. That's just the way youth hockey is now. That seems to be gone, and the guys just go at it.
I think it all changed really after the Americans won their first ever World Junior Gold Medal in Helsinki, Finland in 2004. I was there to watch that. That was Zach Parise. That was Al Montoya in goal. That was Ryan Suter on defense. Mark Stewart was the captain. Ryan Kessler was on that team. I think it all changed then. And Mike Eaves and Johnny Hines were coaching that team. Johnny's had a magnificent NHL coaching career. And Mike Eaves, I worked for the late Badger Bob Johnson. Of all the players Badger ever coached, Mike Eaves was his favorite. I can tell you that right now. You say, what's Eaver saying? What's Eaver doing? He used to say that all the time. But that's where I think it changed for USA Hockey. I think you can really go back and say, where's the Mendoza line where they crossed over and really took off? And I think you can go back to the 2004 World Junior. And everybody said, you know what? It's possible for us to beat Canada. It's possible for us to beat Russia. It's possible for us to beat Finland and Sweden and Czech Republic and Slovakia. And that's what happened there. And the rest has been history for America.
Yeah, I would agree. I was fortunate enough to be there as well, and I would agree. I think that was kind of a turning point for sure with USA Hockey and the program in general, kind of moving forward. Let me take you, Pierre, to a little bit around the league. Are you surprised that Connor McDavid has not signed an extension yet? We don't know that if he's going to do a long term. The feeling is he's going to sign some sort of extension with the Oilers. Are you surprised that he hasn't done it yet?
No, this is all just part of the negotiation process. It's a deal that will eventually get done. I've done a bunch of these contracts earlier in my career and even later in my career. So it takes a little bit of time. There's some minutia to get worked out. But I think it's been an ever-changing landscape. They wanted to see where the new collective bargaining agreement was going to lead. And there's no question he should be the highest paid player in the league. So they just got to figure that out. I don't think those kinds of negotiations are that hard. I think it's the guys that are in the middle. And as an organization, you're not sure if they still got jam left or if they're falling to the other side. So with McDavid, I don't think you need to worry about that. So I think his deal will get done. There's another one I know people in Montreal are panicking about. Why isn't Lane Hudson signed yet? Lane Hudson will get signed. He's not going anywhere. He's a restricted free agent. Even if he doesn't sign now, they will get, and they will, if let's just say somebody tried to make a predatory offer on him, EJ, guaranteed Montreal's going to match, which is their right on an RFA. So these things are, I get it, but no, I'm not surprised McDavid's not signed.
With McDavid, there's been a lot of speculation in terms of the term. I mean, if you go back 5, 6, 7 years ago, it would have just kind of been a no-brainer that he would have looked for an 8-year contract.
Yep.
But I think the landscape is changing. I mean, Matthews has done a couple of shorter contracts. The cap is going to be going up. I would think the agents look at it and say, hey, with a player like this, let's do a shorter deal. Then we can go back at it when we have even more information about the market. Yep. I could see maybe that taking place with Cale Makar down the road as well. What do you make of that? Are we in a changing environment now where we're going to see maybe shorter deals for these guys as they kind of try to work out where the market is going to be and not leave money on the table?
I think higher end players will probably do what you're saying. I think guys that are maybe in the middle would prefer to have term over dollar value. So I think it's going to change for whatever group you're in. And there are going to be some guys who are just going to be happy to get a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
We see that a lot now. I use Travis Hamonic, who I am a huge fan of as a person. I've known him really well. I helped bring him to Ottawa. And Travis is a great guy. He just signed a 1-year deal for $1 million, in Detroit because he's on the tail end. He knows it. His agent knows it, and he still wants to play. and he wants to be relevant. And so you're going to see those kinds of deals too. So I think there's going to be like 3 or 4 different groups that you're going to see in terms of how deals get constructed.
Yeah, I mean, and I would think too for the guys at the top end and term, to me, term is still really valuable because I think if anything, we could say over the last several years now, going back, to maybe the late part of the teens here, you just don't know what's going to happen in the world. The cap is going up, everything's rosy today. Things could change. I mean, having the comfort of or having the security of a 7 or 8 year contract is still a pretty nice thing for anyone. So we will have to just watch and see. Everybody's going to try to kind of go at it a little bit differently. Pierre, when we wrap up here, I want to ask you about, there's been a lot of stuff that's gone on in the summer. As I mentioned at the start, it's kind of dried out a little bit. But as you've had time to think about things, is there a team or two that you get ready for the season that you're saying, boy, I really like this team, and I really think the moves they made were really good, and the more I've thought about it, I think this is a team that has a chance to move forward?
Anaheim would be one. I'll tell you that right now. I think Pat Verbeek and Martin Madden Jr. have done a great job, and it all started with the recruitment and eventual hiring of Joel Quenneville. I think Anaheim's put themselves in a very good position to move forward. I think Montreal's done a fantastic job. People aren't talking enough about Zachary Bolduc. Everybody knows about Noah Dobson, but Zachary Bolduc's a tremendous addition to that team. If they ever got that second center we're talking about, look out. I think Toronto, really quietly, Brad Treliving and his people, they haven't been braggadocious about their acquisitions, but they were able to keep John Tavares. People forget that. He's a valuable component. And I know people started beating him up, on not having Mitchell Marner. But Nicolas Waugh is a very good player. And they play him in the 3-hole. That's a way undervalued property. And, if you're playing Scotty Lawton as your fourth-line center, you look at that depth. Matthews, Tavares, Roy, and then Scotty Lawton. That's significant firepower down the middle. And if you don't have a stable center ice position, you're not winning. Ask the Florida Panthers. Look at their team.
Yeah.
When they start rolling out Sammy Bennett and they start rolling out Sasha Barkov and they start rolling out Anton Frundell and then they start rolling out Tomas Nosek.
Yeah.
That's serious depth down the middle. If you don't have that, you're not winning in the league today. No chance.
Yeah, no question. No question about that. You've got to be deep in the middle. And that's the thing I always say, Pierre. Like at any given time in the league, and at least in my time watching the game here, there's always, I'd say, we could argue about who they are, but maybe 16 or 18 real number one centers. And then you get into those depth pieces, and there's some teams that have 2 of them. For years, Pittsburgh had Crosby and Malkin, right? They had 2 number one centers there, so they were really deep through the middle. Not surprising, they won Stanley Cups. To your point, depth through the middle. Why is it that there's not more... we don't have more really high-end centers in the league at any given time?
Because it's just like football. It's just like baseball. If you don't have good starting pitching, they're hard to find those guys.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
If you don't have an elite quarterback in the NFL, you're not winning. I don't give a poop. And there are a lot of teams that don't win in that league. It's always the same teams that win because they have good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Tom Brady, go back to Terry Bradshaw. I'm just telling you, if you don't have elite quarterback and you can't win in the NFL. And in hockey, it's just hard to create. It's an amazingly athletic position. You got to play 200 feet. You were talking about the 2 center icemen. Scotty Bowman and I created a thing a long time ago called the 7-player profile and to build a team, especially going into the cap era. 7-player profile is pretty simple. It's 2 dominant centers. Yeah. And every team since 05-06, starting with Carolina, it fits the profile. 2 dominant centers, power forward, specialist forward. That could be a face-off guy, a power play guy, a penalty kill guy, shot blocking guy, physical guy, it doesn't matter. So that's 4 of your 7. An elite puck-moving defenseman, an elite shutdown defenseman, and because there's so much parity in the league because of the salary cap and so many games go to overtime and shootout, you got to have an elite goalie. Mm-hmm. So those are your 7, and then you build around those 7, you're going to have that thing. But if you don't have those 2 centermen, doesn't matter how many other parts of the profile you have. You're not winning. That's why I always say that the number one thing in the 7-player profile, you got to have the 2 dominant centers. I go back to Colorado. Imagine having Sakic and Forsberg. And I'm going to date myself. Those Stanley Cups back there, I was fortunate enough to be around. We had Mario Lemieux, Ronnie Francis, Brian Trottier, and a guy named Randy Gillen. in one playoff game, Randy Gillen won 15 straight faceoffs, 15 in a row in a playoff game. So that's 4 amazing centermen. Amazing centermen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny too. You're absolutely right. You go back through the history of this game, and even if you just say, listen, you have a legit number one center, a legit number one D, and a good goalie, like nobody wins the Stanley Cup without at least those pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. There's always a skeleton that managers and teams, that's where you build your team around. And that's really good. I mean, that's really interesting what Scotty and you share there with the way that he went about it. So very interesting. And it's just, you have to have those things. And if you don't have them, that's why for the Leafs, they've had some of these high-end players. They have Austin Matthews at the top. And so now is the time to try to make it happen. So we'll see with the additions this year. I liked Dakota Joshua too. I thought that was a good ad.
We're on this. Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
And part of that, again, it's intimacy, it's knowledge. Craig Berube had Dakota Joshua in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's right.
He knows exactly what he brings to the party. One other thing, because we're talking about center icemen, one of the trends that I saw when I was breaking down all the college free agents that were signed by NHL teams, whether they were signed on NHL deals or minor league deals, the number of center icemen that eventually could be those depth centermen.
Yeah.
This was a year that a lot of NHL teams signed players that none of the fans know about. They're way undervalued center icemen, but it's to what you talked about before. Teams are starting to recognize we need to have those players.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing I always say, because teams will overpay sometimes for a guy has done that role for several years. The value is what's important. Those players are out there. Find the first version of that player. Don't overpay for a second version because they're there. You just have to do the work. You have to do the scouting work. You have to put in the time. So
You're right on, my man.
Well, Pierre, listen, we'll wrap it up for today. Thanks again for the time. You're the best. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your week.
Thank you.
We will be talking to you. You have been watching the Toronto Sports Rush right here on the Bet Rivers Network.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.